All right, testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. All right, testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Cool. Sounds good. So we'll go ahead and wait for a couple of people to trickle in, and then we'll get started. Good, good. Glad you guys can hear us. Hello. It's been a very busy week with game dev stuff, so super excited to have everybody here. Should be pretty casual today, I think. But we've got myself. I'll do a couple of presentations or announcements in the beginning, and then we'll have a presentation afterwards, and we'll grab everybody and do kind of a little gathering afterwards in Discord. So should be a lot of fun. How's everybody's weekend going? All right. Hey, Matt. Good to see you guys. Good to see you, Smiling Cat. Oh, hey, Robert. And not sure who it is from Liquid Shock Games, but glad to have you guys. I'm going to throw up a couple of links for some things coming up. So we got GDEX Game Jam happening right now. If you want to be a part of that, you're still able to. It's a 2-week game jam happening with the GDEX Game Expo coming up beginning of October, and it's a lot of fun. We got a lot of folks in there. They're still looking for people to help, so if you're interested, send a link there. We're doing it between Discord and itch.io. So, or itch.io as some of you like to say. Oh, hey guys. There's some more new members. Welcome, welcome. So I posted up GDEX. We'll get some news about that. And what else? Oh, yeah, and if you're interested in joining the Discord server, whether you're participating or not, let's see if I can get that link. Yep, here you go. That's our GDEX Discord as well. All right. Alright. Can everybody see me okay? Alright, welcome everybody. This is kind of my humble home with a bunch of anime and family photos and stuff, so a lot of artsy stuff. Welcome to the Central Ohio Game Dev group. We do this every month. My name is Wesley Adams. I'll be single hosting today. We've had a lot of like different things kind of going on, so I'll be steering the ship, so to speak. But we've got a lot of really good news today. October is jam-packed full of game development opportunities and information, so a lot of cool stuff kind of happening there. So we're going to go over some of those announcements, but first and foremost, just kind of welcome who here in the YouTube channel is new that hasn't actually been here before. I'll kind of let you guys respond, but we wanted to welcome anybody that's new to kind of give you a little bit of heads up what COGG is. So COGG is the Central Ohio Game Dev Group. We've usually do a lot of our events online, or excuse me, in person, but now they're all online until things kind of get a little bit more better to kind of showcase in person with a large group. But if you're ever interested to find more stuff with our events, it's at thecog.com. You can find all our meetup events there. We're revamping the website eventually to kind of host a lot more information, but right now that's where you find a bulk of it. Cool. Welcome, Robert. Good to see you. Good. Yeah. Yeah, I know a lot of you actually have benefited from doing some of these events online because maybe you couldn't meet in person in Columbus, Ohio. We usually meet at the Idea Foundry, which is like a co-working space. So I'm glad that a lot of you have been able to actually attend because it's just easy kind of sign in and just kind of talk to folks. So kind of just to let you know a little bit of the order today, we're going to do a couple announcements in the beginning. Myself, I've helped to host COG for a while, but I also work with the local game studio called Multivarious Games. I help with them with different projects. We actually help to host another event coming up, which is a big thing that we do every year called GDEX. So a lot of you are starting to see some of that trickle in. A lot of work has been getting into that, so pardon the kind of delay in some of the information, but I'm going to give you everything you need to know today. So we're going to have some announcements, especially with that in the beginning, and then afterwards we've got our good friend and peer Kent coming in to showcase a game that he's going to do a post-mortem on. So feel free to kind of chime in and listen to some of the talks, and then in the channels I'm going to be looking for anything that you guys may have questions with, and then we'll have a Q&A session right after that with our presenter, Kent. So yeah, so good question. John, I saw you jump in. Sebastian, good to meet you. Good to have a new face, so to speak. So good to see you. But John was talking about, he sent in his application. Haven't heard anything back. John, is that a application for a speaker or exhibitor? Let us know, and I'll get you connected with Cody. So I will check up with Cody and see what's going up with that. He's our, I think, main lead for exhibitors this year. So let's go ahead and dive exhibitor. Okay, so we'll reach back out, John, after the event, and we'll make sure to get everything figured out. So so let's go ahead and get into it with announcements. Excuse me. So I'm gonna switch this over real quick. Let me kind of move this out. We'll present. It's not what I wanted yet, but yeah. Anyways, today's September 26, 2020. You may see some of our friends here. This is actually an Idea Foundry for those of you who are new or may not have been able to make it in person. So that's a couple of us during a game jam. So we're actually doing a game jam right now for about 2 weeks. It's the first time doing a game jam with an online presence and with the GDEX, which is our Game Developer Expo. So I'm going to go over that in a little bit. But if you aren't or haven't attended a game jam before, please do. They're a lot of fun. There's a lot of really good experience. And we're always trying to find ways to provide you resources and information to make you, give you a lot of really good, successful, um, opportunities to kind of network with people as well as learn about the game development process. Uh, so let's kind of go over what's coming up in the future. So as I mentioned before, Central Ohio is kind of a collection of game developers who want to help each other. But we're not just game developers. You can be a student. You can be like not even a developer at all. You might be interested, an enthusiast. We're interested in helping everybody, even if you're just trying to figure out like what is game development, and especially in the sense of what is it like in the Midwest or in Ohio. We collaborate with a couple of groups like CCAD, Columbus State, OSU. We have other different groups in Ohio, like Cincinnati and Cleveland. And they're really good sister sites that we've been, kind of connecting with, and they've been doing a lot of cool stuff online too. So we always try to kind of share some of that information. Um, so a couple of events coming up. So we are still doing remote online events in October. We did change some of the dates, and that's mainly because GDEX is happening October 9th through 11th, which I'll show up here in just a little bit. But we basically pushed a couple of these dates further. We try not to get some of these events that are coming up to happen more than once a week if we can. Some of them are back to back, but this way, hopefully, you guys and gals and whatnot have a chance to be able to go to any of these, right? So right here in the first one is Prototype and Play. It's going to be the third Friday this month, again, because of GDEX. And again, it's going to be a Friday night. Lots of fun, just kind of hang out after work. And it'll be from 6 to 9 p.m. It's pretty casual. We don't really have like a sign-up sheet, but if you go to our Discord, you can actually, let me know. My name is Wolfgamer. And we do have our link above and within the should be in the description of the video too. But if you're interested in presenting your game, whether it's finished or in progress, this is a really good way to kind of get feedback from our communities. So it's kind of a one-stop shop if you want to play games or if you want to present games. Please do come out. We do enjoy having anybody and everybody there, even if it's just to chat. But really, especially to give feedback about the progress of games, or just kind of get some ideas of like, maybe to think about this in the next step of the process. So that's a good event to go to. We've had some pretty good success and seen some really amazing growth with the next couple of or last previous events. So please do keep coming out. We basically give you, as a Prototype and Play presenter, we give you a chat channel and a voice channel, so you can post anything you need that's text-based, and then you can showcase your video like I am today, which I'm actually streaming through Discord, or COGG Discord, and you can go in and kind of showcase your game there. It can be a physical game too. You'll just have to kind of showcase through your webcam, like a digital board game or whatnot, with your cards. If you're interested in learning more about that, just feel free to message me in chat or in the YouTube chat, and we'll be happy to help you up, help set you up. The next one is the Let's Play. This is a new series. One of our admins, Caleb Eno, is actually helping to lead that charge. So we don't know what the event or what the game is going to be, but essentially this is like on a Sunday. This time it's going to be October 25th, which is the fourth Sunday. Usually it's the third Sunday, but we're switching it. And this will be where we actually play a game and we break it down, right? We go through the design process, or we find what kind of works or what doesn't, and just kind of break down an interesting concept. Last time it was to theme or not to theme, and they played Outer Wilds. I actually didn't watch most of it because I hadn't played the game and I was working on some other things at the time, but it did seem to be a really good conversation for those who were able to make it. So a lot of really good feedback there. For thanks for those who could make it. They're a lot of fun, and I would kind of preface with the fact that if you want to be on the stream and kind of go through one of your favorite games that you think would be kind of fun to go through, just let us know. Let us know in the Discord. You can also email us at info@thecog.com, and you can, you know, let us know that you're interested in participating in a Let's Play. So we try to get those, themes figured out about a week ahead of time. And then we do a vote on Discord of which game you guys want to do from that theme. So sometimes, like before, we did like a platform game. We did kind of like a puzzle game. So let us know what you want to do. And we'll be happy to kind of put that into the pool, and then we'll do a vote. And whichever gets voted the most, we'll play that game. So, and then the GameDev Meetup is going to be the same because that's October 31st. So, that weekend that we do that stream. Let me just double check if I got that right. I feel like that isn't right, but I could be wrong. Nope, that's correct. It's a weird week because it fills up the entire week from the 25th to the 31st. Okay, cool. So 25th is the Let's Play, and the GameDev Meetup, which you are participating now in, is going to happen on the 31st. So just like what we have now. Here's some of our social media at the bottom. So feel free to check out thecog.com. We've got a Facebook page full of information and people talking all the time there. There's our Discord, which I posted in the chat, and our YouTube channel, which you're already here. If you are not subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do. I know that sounds kind of redundant with a lot of those folks, but it does help get our word out there. We're at about 90 members so far, so that means if we get 10 more people, then we can actually change this crazy looking URL to the COG, and that'll kind of help us share it a little bit easier. So, cool. All right, so not to kind of go through this too much, we kind of already went through a lot of this before. We're going online. September we were online. We are in October as well. But the big thing I wanted to showcase in here is at the bottom. We've got GDEX Game Jam happening September 18th through October 4th. I did mistype that. It was a week less. This is a 2-week game jam. It's all happening on Discord, and we're submitting our games on and doing registration on itch.io. So if you're not familiar with itch.io, it is a basically a platform where you can submit your games, but they also host game jams there too. So we actually have a GDEX specific game jam that people will register to and submit their games online. And what will be neat is that everybody there that's participating can then at the end of the jam kind of judge each other's games and give feedback. And that's kind of what we have on our Discord as well. So our Discord is where we do all our communications with, and then itch.io is where you kind of submit your games. Just as well, GDEX is going to be all online this year, called GDEX TV. We did a test stream last Saturday, or actually Friday, sorry, yesterday. Kind of getting my dates confused. So yesterday we did a live stream with GDEX TV, so thanks for everybody that could make it out for that. That was a good test for the real thing. And the way that it's going to work is we've got tickets live for kind of our professional and networking shows, and that'll be a separate showing. And then we're hosting all our exhibitors and other just kind of general streams to the public on our Twitch page. So if you're interested, check out the GDEX on Twitch, and you can find our shows public. And then our professional shows, so if it's like a kind of like a seminar, keynote speaker, or a workshop, or even kind of talking about getting introduced to other different professional game developers, those will be on our ticketed event now. So let me see if I can show that now. So if you go to thegdex.com, you'll see all our information and then our ticket sales. So if you go, you can kind of find more information about our portal. So basically we have our GDEX TV, which starting October 9th, we'll start streaming all our information there throughout the weekend. And then for the GDEX Virtual, this is where you'll have full networking workshops and exclusive Q&As for all our information there. So if you go to tickets, you can find all your information. And so there is a general admission for $20 plus, just kind of a general transaction fee. But yeah, check us out. Should be a lot of fun there. We're using a new online tool called Wova. So it'll do some of our streaming and some of our great information there. So really good content there. If you are exhibiting, you will get a couple of passes there, and then if you need more passes to the GDEX Virtual, you can just pay for an additional one there at a discount. So yeah, so that's what I would say is we're still looking for applications under if you want to sponsor the show, if you want to get your name out there online. You can still find us out there. We're still looking for exhibitors. So I know, John, you were talking about that. We'll get you connected with Cody. And I think we're still looking for speakers, although I feel like we're really starting to tie those down. And as always, with all our GDEX events, we always have interest in volunteers too. So if you want to find more information out, just feel free to go and check out gdex.com. A lot of really good information there. More information about the Game Jam on the front page. So if you were to click on that link, it'll take us to our GDEX page. And you can find all our information there. And then if you want to check out our Discord, you can find it in our links down here. So there's two links, one that goes to our GDEX website on gdex.com, and this other one that will take you to our Discord. And I'm already there, obviously, because I'm one of the admins there. So we got 156 members there, which is pretty crazy, which is really awesome. We've got 28 teams right now, probably about 10 solo teams, and a lot more people that are just kind of on the itch.io page. We've been going for 7 days, but that doesn't mean you can't, jump in. Normally, a game jam is about 48 hours, 72 hours over a weekend. We decided to be more casual and do it about 2 weeks before the GDEX show. So basically, we've got a lot of time. We've got a lot of teams that are still looking for folks that are interested in coming in, whether you're a programmer or an artist or just want to participate as a interested party member. Let us know, and we will work with you once you get on Discord to pair with a team. You will have to register here first. This is kind of the admin team, so normally it would look more like, let me see if I can log out. It'll normally look like this, and you can hit the Join Jam button, and that's how you can register. And we've actually been using our itch.io page. So if I were to actually switch over to our Discord, I wonder if you guys can see this. You can. Cool. All right. So this is our GDEX Game Jam. I won't go too far into this, so I'll be happy to kind of go over it if you jump into the channel. But we do have GDEX public channels, so anything kind of coming in, if you just want to learn about things about GDEX, we have our public channels there. We then, once you get registered, and it'll be based on your registration on itch.io, we have a bot that helps to assign you to different teams and give you different roles. You'll be access to this space. And then you'll notice that we have a lot of different teams here. So these are all our different teams kind of talking throughout the weekend and throughout the week. And they get their own text channel and their own voice channels. You see some folks are actually working today. So yeah, definitely check us out. It's a lot of fun. It's been a lot of progress to kind of get us through some of those different regions. But yeah, should be a lot of really cool stuff. So let me just kind of make sure. Didn't miss anything. All right, so today's lineup is, we kind of did our GDEX updates, we did our COGG team updates. I don't think I'm missing anything else, just a couple of announcements here and there, but our big presentation today is we're going to be working with Reese, who's going to do a post-mortem on Void. So he's been working on that, on his own, and just kind of wanted to give a little bit of a shout out there. So definitely check us out in a couple of minutes. And I think, unless I'm missing anything, does anybody have any other announcements they want to talk about? And I'll take a look at some of the notes to give you guys a chance if you have any other questions. Are you still looking for volunteers? Seems to be closed. It might be closed. Let me double check that. That is not information I'm always privy with, so I will definitely check with that. The button on the sponsorship page not working. Let me double check that. So yeah, I will definitely check that out. If you are interested in sponsoring, let me know, and I can get you connected with Chris. He's the one doing all the sponsorships. We have a package for you guys if you want to kind of look at that. So yeah, good. Thanks for letting us know. I know that we're always editing and updating the website a lot, so we just want to make sure that everybody has access to what they need. So, but yeah, let me see if I can x.com/ships. Here you go. So if you're interested in sponsoring, our website should be here. There you go. Yeah, I think that's probably the best way to get our information. So now I have to double check if that's a live link. That I know that's one we've used in the past. So really, honestly, if you want to be a sponsorship, just message us in the chat, or you can email us at info@thecog.com, and I'll get you connected with Chris. So cool. All right. Well, I'm not going to take any more time up. I think we're doing pretty good. Buttons there don't work. Fill the form. Cool. Yeah, I would say, yeah, just feel free to email me and we'll work it out. No problem. Cool. All right. And cool. So let's get started. So I'm going to go ahead and bring over our presenter today. So give me one moment. Here we go. All right. You are live, Kent.
Hello. Hello, everyone. All right. I just want to wait until the stream catches up to my voice to make sure that everything's good.
Yeah, let us know
All right. Looks good.
If he can hear you or not, if you can hear him or not. So let me go ahead and stream this out. So.
All right.
Good.
So,
cool. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah.
Sounds like Matt says he can hear you fine. So, cool.
Yeah. Let's get started here then.
All right. Would you like to introduce yourself and your background a little bit and who you are?
Sure. There's a little bit of that in the presentation, but I'm fine doing that myself. So I have been a member of COGG for many years, starting in around 2014. I have not been actively in the community because I have been in Rochester, New York for college, doing game design and development. I'm currently a fourth year, so I have not been part of the scene since 2017. I've popped in here and there over, but it's nice that this event is online so that I can present remotely. And it's just when I saw that it was online, I thought, oh, I could do a presentation to COGG, which I love doing. I love this community and I love the people here. So I thought that the second I had a presentation that I thought was worth sharing, that I would share it.
Yeah,
And
and that's been kind of the cool thing is we've gotten a lot of folks like not even in Ohio that have been able to do a couple presentations or showcase their content. And you're free to do so. Like, don't feel like you have to necessarily be Columbus, Ohio local or whatnot. We're really kind of our goal is to kind of help funnel people with different opportunities that they're able to, go in and, you know, get better with that. Sorry if the door is kind of going. I've got cats, so they like to come in and out of the office. So if you see that, don't get spooked. Just my cat's saying like, "Hey, I want in. Hey, I want out." So cool. All right. But yeah,
well,
so what brings you to Rochester mainly? Like, what's your career opportunities and goals eventually?
well, mainly it's the Rochester Institute of Technology, which is rated top 10 in game design and development in the country. And it's, um, I believe we're top five actually. And um, I got the opportunity to go to RIT on a scholarship, and it was the school that looked most appealing to me. So that's why I'm here in Rochester. I'm originally from Mansfield, Ohio, which is a city about an hour out from Columbus, and um, yeah, so I'm only temporarily in Rochester. There's a few game development studios that I might work at for a bit after I graduate, but my main goal is to try and start my own studio. And I feel like I would start that either here in Rochester or in Ohio. Um, and yeah, those are my that's like my big aspiration. But my other sort of goals with Rochester was mainly just education, um, getting a degree in game design and development, getting a minor in entrepreneurship, getting a minor in English. Um, and I feel like I've done that so far, and I'm on track to graduate on time and with flying colors. So
Yeah,
uh,
and
I'm,
and that's a really neat thing that I think a lot of people's like may not consider is that you know if you want to do games, yourself, it actually is quite a bit of understanding, a little bit of entrepreneurship when you're starting a studio or looking for ways to publish your game. There's a lot of resources out there. Gamma Sutra is a good resource, but definitely getting education in that and getting information and feedback um, it is really key before you kind of like just run and make your own game, right? Because it's perfectly fine if you want to make a game that just kind of want it as a learning experience or have some fun with that. It's perfectly fine to do that. I think that if you do want to sell it, just kind of do your research because you'll save a lot of time if you even if you just kind of do a little bit of information. And of course, like COGG is a great way to kind of go into and get feedback. We have like a help channel. So those of you who may not know about this, I don't even know if you know about this, Kent, but if you look in our community channel, there's a dev help channel. People from time to time will post like if they're stuck on code or have a question about the game industry or whatever. That's a great place to kind of get more information. So, not to kind of commandeer your conversation, but I just want to mention that you know
yeah,
what you're working
yeah.
on is really uh, a really good step and path because it's going to give you a lot of really good information. So,
Oh yeah, yeah. If there are any students currently in the audience, if you want to start your own company, it really helps to have some sort of background in entrepreneurship or business or finance of some kind. Even a little bit of information about just starting a company can help. And yeah, as Wes pointed out, there are plenty of resources online. There are plenty of resources here in COG. And there are plenty of people who have started their own business. And I'm sure that there are plenty of people who would be willing to help uh, you or anyone else start a game development business.
Yeah, and that's the great thing too is, we're not necessarily here as COG to kind of like say, cool, we're gonna make five, new, game studios. Although that would be cool. Maybe someday there could be an avenue of that. But our goal is just to kind of connect people together. So that being the case, like if you have information, even if it's you think, oh, no one would really care about that, still post it. Like if you're like, hey, I thought this. Like right now, what Kent's doing is great. He's going to be showcasing like a post-mortem of his game that he's been working on. Um, and those are really valuable because like that's how people can start to ask questions about this or that and really kind of self-discover like and evaluate, maybe that's something I could pursue, right? Because there's a lot of options like later down the road. You might decide, okay, do I want to make a prototype of my game and do a Kickstarter or a crowdfunding campaign? Or do I, later maybe want to push it to a couple of different publishers, and what kind of publishers? What kind of platform, right? Or do I need to like pull out a loan, right? Maybe you need to pull out a business loan and know that you're going to, or save up money, right, for a couple of years and then know that you're going to work on this game or try to market this game or build this game over a course of like 6 months to a year or something like that and see how it picks up. Those are very viable options. And I think that even though our group tends to be like someone who might have a code problem or something like that, or someone has a question about a design, we're also like open to talking about businesses and platforms where people might have questions about how to start up a concept. And there's a lot of really good conversations that kind of unfold as we start to bring those up. I don't think that there's necessarily a one meets all answer, but it's a lot of really good things to consider. So
Right.
yeah.
Right. All right. So should I just get right into it then? I
Yep.
have the presentation right here,
Yep.
and
When you're ready, we go ahead and jump into it. So what's the name of the game and what it's about? And then when you got it streaming, I'll go ahead and open that up.
so let me just start and go live. All right. This should show the PowerPoint presentation. I'm not
Oh, we got it.
it.
Oh,
All
almost.
right, you got it?
Yeah, I can see it this way, but full screen turns white.
Hmm.
Yeah, it might be it. What's it using? Is it Microsoft Office PowerPoint or is it using?
It's using Microsoft Office PowerPoint. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, Discord might be getting confused when it goes full
Hmm.
screen. I wonder if you do a.
Well, it currently isn't full screen.
Oh,
It's just the presentation view. Um,
yeah, huh.
Let me see here what it looks like on stream. Oh yeah, so it's like flickering in and out is
Yeah.
what it looks like.
Do you want to
Uh,
try? Are you streaming the application or are you streaming the screen?
I'm streaming the application. I can try streaming the screen.
Yeah, try the screen and
It'll
see if that works.
okay.
Yeah, yeah, that's what
Let's
Sebastian was saying.
just stop the stream and start it again. Just stream the screen. All right.
Don't cross the streams.
Don't cross the streams. It's very important. All right. Enough joking around.
That's all good.
So,
Definitely no
what's
flickering
that?
now.
No flickering now. It
Nope.
looks stable, looks good. All
Yeah.
right, let's go into presentation view.
Yeah, let's see
Hopefully
what
it
that
doesn't
does.
hopefully it doesn't die. All right. How
So
does it
far
look?
so good.
So far, so good.
Okay,
All right.
cool.
Welcome, everybody. This is a post-mortem on a video game I made called Void. So, first, who am I? We went over this a little bit, but there's a few details here that I did not mention. So, fourth year at RIT, game design major, was a regular attendee of COGG from about 2014 to 2017. I helped make a game called Overdrive, which has done really well on mobile platforms. That was a game I made as part of a student project at RIT. I was a programmer on it, and it has shipped over 10,000 units now. That's
That's
been
really
really
cool.
exciting. Really exciting for us, especially given that it was a pretty small student project and we didn't put a lot of resources or marketing behind it. So having it blow up like that was really cool to us. And then I'm perpetually working on a game called Duck. Uh,
That's kind of your name to fame with COG, right?
yes,
Yeah.
with my time at COG, I've been famous for this 2D platformer I've been working on called Duck, and over the years, it's gone through multiple iterations, complete annihilations of this source code at one point, and a whole other development story that I don't want to get into here. The post-mortem on that game will be very interesting to watch, but that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about Void. So what is Void? What is this game that I'm talking about? Well, Void is a platformer slash puzzle game where the player navigates via the trail they leave behind. I have a nice animated graphical interlaced format image right here showing off the game. Uh, so as you can see, the player moves, jumps, shoots, and then they reveal that platform, and then they jump over the platform, and then they reach the goal, and then it loops. So that's the basic core game loop there. And the game expands on this loop with a bunch of like different site mechanics later on, but we're not going to go too much into the details of like singular levels and the design of the game. We're more talking about the game from a project standpoint and what it means to me and what lessons I learned making this game.
Okay.
So the player is meant to solve every level and gathering info and platforming, again, different mechanics throughout the game. And move around, find your path, get to the goal. What more do you need? It's a pretty straightforward game, and mechanically, it's not that complicated. Uh, so that's pretty much the game in a nutshell.
Cool.
So, talking about the early stage of development and the 1 hour game jam. The game started as a game I made for this weekly jam called the 1 hour game jam. And it's exactly as it sounds. You have to make a game within 1 hour each week, given a different prompt or subject or whatever each week. And the theme that Void was based on was called it's not a bug, it's a feature. So Void uses a bug in the engine I made for Duck, where the draw
Nice.
screen doesn't clear at times if you
Oh,
set up the game improperly. So the whole mechanic and the whole gist behind Void is based off of this bug that I encountered while developing Duck. So I thought, well, it would be cool to make a game that was based on this bug. So I did. And the original prototype took me an hour to make. It had 5 levels, all of which are, well, I don't know if all of them are in the final game, but most of them at least are. But all of those 5 levels were created within the hour. I submitted to the jam. it did really well. People really liked playing it. They told me good things about it. It ended up quote unquote winning the jam. There is really no winning 1 hour game jam. It's mostly just the guy who hosts it or runs a stream and streams all the games that were submitted for the 1 hour game jam, and then at the end he just says the game he liked the most, and that's how you win the game jam.
Oh, cool.
So, um, and he really liked Void. So once I had made it, I knew that I had wanted to expand it because I thought it was a really interesting concept, a really interesting mechanic, uh, and you know, it's easy to expand upon. But at the time, it was just another project on a whole list of projects I had that I wanted to get done. So I didn't really do much with it. I wasn't very serious about expanding it. I knew I had wanted to expand it, but it was just like on the back burner for now because there were other things, classes, and projects that were more important to me, including Duck, including Overdrive, and a bunch of other smaller projects that I've worked on over the past year. Then I showed it to a professor of mine who is also a COGG alumni, Ian Schreiber.
Yeah,
Um,
I know Ian. Yeah, Ian used to be a COG member years and years ago, and it's neat that now he's like your teacher in a different state. Ian
yes,
actually is if you're familiar with Global Game Jam, which is an international game jam
it's one of
competition, not competition, but event, because there's not really a competition. He actually helps to organize some of that too. So he's a really good game designer. So I'm really glad he's your professor because he's really good. So
yes, and he's actually one of the co-founders of the Global Game Jam. If you
yep,
didn't know that,
yep,
um, and at RIT, we've had a Global Game Jam site every year ever since the Global Game Jam started. So that's really cool. Um, but Ian played the prototype of the game, and for those of you who know Ian, you know he's not a person who's easily impressed.
yes.
And he was impressed with this demo I had showed him, and he said he really wanted to see me make it into a full game. Um, and so I took that and I was like, yeah, all right, if Ian likes it, it must be worthy of making. However, even with that motivation, that prompt from Ian, I wouldn't really work on it for another year because I just, again, had other things to do, other projects to complete. I was working for UNICEF at this point. So, for those of you who are unfamiliar, uh, UNICEF is the organizational body that does a lot of the humanitarian work of the United Nations. They're the United Nations International Committee of Child Relief, I believe is their proper title. But I was employed with them as a software engineer consultant for a bit,
That's
and
really cool.
that took up a lot of my time.
I
So I
bet
did not get a lot of.
it's really important work too. So yeah,
Yeah,
congrats on that. That's awesome.
thank you. Um, and it was really cool work, but I didn't really get to work on games for 6 months. And then once I ended my contract at 6 months, they renewed it again, but part time. So I was able to do schoolwork and do UNICEF work. And I was still working on games on the side, but eventually that contract ended, and then I decided not to renew. And then uh, I was working. I was working full time on Duck actually at the start of this year, from January until about March when COVID wiped everything off my schedule, and I had to go home. and it was,
Yeah, it's funny how that
miserable and
happens,
terrible.
right?
Yeah, yeah, right as the game I've been working on for years and years and years is about to get finished, um, that's when a pandemic hits. But COVID really wiped my schedule clear of everything, and Void seemed like a good project to just pick up and do. I didn't think it would take me very long, and I had a composer that I had been working with for Duck. I've been friends with him for a very long time. His name's Max. Uh, and even with him on board, I still wasn't working on the game consistently. Um, I was just kind of like, well, to ease a little bit of the existential dread of the whole COVID situation, I'll work on this here and there, but it wasn't it wasn't like it was my primary focus. And I was just kind of like wasting around for 3 months. So eventually I talked to a friend of mine from RAT. His name's Nick Rasmussen. Don't expect any of you guys to know him, but he's important to the development of this game. And we were talking about our struggle through the pandemic and how hard it was to do work in such an unorganized and ambivalent environment. It's just it just felt kind of, to us it felt kind of useless to even do anything because we don't even know if there's going, like, when the pandemic is going to end, or if we'll be back at school in the fall. There were just so many questions at that time, like, what is even going to happen? So,
So you guys was it like you were in the middle of classes at the beginning of this year and then classes had to stop, I suppose? Like how did that
yeah,
work?
yeah, pretty much. So what happened was we went on spring break.
Yeah.
I stayed in Rochester because I wasn't taking classes. I was working on Duck as part of a program at RIT.
Oh, cool.
I don't want to explain it too much because it's a bit complicated and bit of a bit getting lost in the details. But
Yeah.
I was still in Rochester, and the spring break was only supposed to be a week. Well, then RIT extended it to another week, and then they said, we're shutting down campus. You can come back and grab your stuff for one day, um, and then you have to go home. They sent everyone home, basically, and any
That's
class that
crazy.
could be online was online, and any class that couldn't be online was just canceled
Yeah.
outright.
That's
Um,
crazy.
and once the end of the semester hit, it was just, up in the air if we would even have fall semester at all. And there was a lot of speculation that we wouldn't have fall semester, or at least it would be entirely online. So it was just a really stressful time uh, with COVID. And now the semester has started again. RIT has done a really good job on starting the semester back up in a nice and safe way. I don't want to shill for the university too much, but uh, they've really done a nice job as far as like enforcing 100% mask wearing, keeping the cases down really low. We've only had 4 cases since the start of the semester, and we're like in week 6, going into week 7 now.
Oh, wow.
Um,
So you guys are back at this
yeah,
point.
we're back,
Okay.
and most of the classes are online, but there are classes that are mixed, so like mixed in person and online classes.
Yeah.
Uh, so it's about as good as it could be, with given the New York State restrictions and uh, all the precautions that RIT has taken. So I feel like they've done a really good job starting back up. But to get back, here
Hmm.
at this moment, Nick and I basically were like, well, okay, if we are just drowning in this pandemic by ourselves, unable to get anything meaningful done, how about we just team up and hold each other accountable for the work being done each week, and then we can get work done. And that really helped motivate me and Nick to get work done. But for Void, it really helped motivate me to finish the project. Uh, and so,
That's really cool. Yeah, I mean, in some instance, like that's kind of it's a different dynamic, right? Like in some instance, we are lucky enough that a lot of the stuff that we need to do in person versus online kind of isn't too different. It definitely is different, right? I'm not gonna smooth that bump, so to speak. But you know what I think to keep in mind for what you said that really pulled me out to think about it more is that yeah, it's like either holding people accountable or just like over communicating things. It might seem a little bit like, you know, just kind of brash, right? That you're just kind of talking to people, making sure they're okay and reaching out. It's because it's more communication than it probably used to be. But it's really important, not only for like projects and things that you're working on, but just kind of seeing how people are, right? Because you can kind of live in this bubble, and not know what to do. And so that's why sometimes, like, we try to communicate, over communicate a lot of things on like Discord or Facebook. A lot of times I'm just blasting a lot of things because we don't always see people or have the chance to see people in person. So that's actually really good because like you kind of have to do that in a lot of different spectrums, right? So whether it's working with a team or talking with someone and seeing how they're doing, or even uh, like even just kind of like going in and getting feedback on stuff, right? It's definitely is a little bit harder before, right? Where if you're trying to get feedback on a game or information about something, a lot of times people will see a message online and maybe they're busy at the time and they forget about it, right? So I think the idea of holding people accountable is kind of like a rhythm to what I'm thinking about in terms of how to just kind of over communicate in some instance because people see like my phone's always blowing up with messages and I don't always get them, right? But I try my best to because I know that a lot of times that's the primary point of communication now, right? So yeah, but that's good. I'm glad it's working for you because I think that's something that people can consider,
right.
especially if they're looking to work on a project remotely. So sorry, go ahead with your next slide.
Yeah. Uh, so getting the game done took from the time that I had the status report updates with Nick, it only took me about 2 months to finish it. Um, so we started
Awesome.
in early June, late May ish, and then I finished the game on July 22nd. Um, and so having that weekly status report really helped motivate me to get work done because the format that we did um, was we would get on at the same time every week. Uh, I would ask him what he did, he would ask me what I did, and then we would say, "Well, okay, here's the things you said you would do, and you did. You either did them or you didn't do them. What are the things you're going to do this week?" And then we would tell each other the things we were going to do in the next week, and then we just talk as friends for a bit, and then the next week we would do it again. So that kind of style really helped cement what I needed to get done because it allowed me to just say, I want to get this thing done this week. I want to get this thing done this week. And I want to get this thing done this week. And if I don't get them done, I get to feel bad for an hour in a Discord call with my friend. Uh,
Well, yeah,
and
it's kind of funny you say that because I know that I've got a lot of different communities I'm a part of just because I'm interested in seeing their process as they're developing a game. Um, yeah, I mean it is holding each other accountable, right? Within reason, right? Because a lot of times you can be constructing this, this pipeline or the game development pipeline, and you've got different goals that you want to reach. It's a balance, right? You want to make sure that you're always holding yourself and other people accountable, but also like don't let it like weigh you down too, because you don't want it to be a process that you kind of regret getting into if you're not meeting deadlines. And a lot of times, I feel like a way to uh, reduce that anxiety in some instance is to just make very achievable goals because it's definitely in a process like this. Like if you can, especially if you're like maybe doing it on the side at times, and you may not have a full 8 hours a day to work on it, then like just do small chunks because especially for a project that you're doing, on your off time, it's a lot easier to get done in small spurts, even if you are doing it for a longer period of time. But what's nice, Kent, is it looks like you guys really dr- drilled into it and got it done in a short timeline. So, can you explain a little bit more about your process in terms of? You said that you do calls on Discord. Did you use any other project management tools like Trello or just online emails or something like that that kind of written everything through, or was it just easy enough for a project like this just to kind of do a status call like once a week or so?
so for this project specifically, it was just a status call once a week. For
Okay.
other projects, I've done Trello boards, I've done Google Drive folders and task assignments and stuff like that. Um, and but for a project where I'm the solo dev and it's not that big in terms of scale, um, it's just easy enough to say like, okay, this week I'm going to do these levels. Next week I'm going to do these levels, um, and there's not much more to it than that. Uh, now, as you stated, um, holding each other accountable, uh, it kind of is like that balance where you don't want to make it so hard when you miss a deadline that it's just really bad. And I think we struck that balance here because the only real consequence of me not doing the work was that my friend was mildly disappointed in me for an hour. But that was enough to motivate me to do the work,
Yeah.
right? So it's not like, you know, it's not like it's the end of the world if I didn't get everything I wanted done that week. I could
Right.
still report the stuff I got done, and my friend probably wouldn't be that upset with me because he's not like, mean. uh, and so just having that nice dynamic as friends, to hold each other accountable just through, I would say, social cues rather than strict enforcement deadlines that you would traditionally see with a game development project. um, I felt like that really helped motivate me, um, and
Yeah, and I think that's what's good is it kind of gives you a bit of a like thermometer check, as I like to say. You kind of, even if you're working solo, you always want to have a chance to be able to share where you're going, even if
right.
it means like posting up a blog someplace or even just showcasing the work you do have to see if the project timeline that you've made for yourself, whether it's just kind of whenever you feel like it or when you know that you need to get a certain timeline, which is always kind of the best case scenario if you are looking to showcase at a show or present to something weekly or monthly or something like on a stream or something like that. Those are things that like help to progress the game better rather than just kind of like it start and stop whenever you feel like it, and then you feel, oh man, like I really wish I worked on this more, right? And it goes on the back burner.
Right.
So yeah, okay. So yeah, Matt was talking about, yeah, Mark was talking about Hack and Plan, which is actually a really great tool, especially for, uh, yeah, you guys were talking about that as a really good tool for game developers as a project management tool. We actually use that a lot for even GDEX stuff and multivarious game stuff. We use Hack and Plan. And then Matt was talking about another tool called Notion. This is kind of like a Swiss Army knife style and random stuff. And then what he used for Accumulate for game dev. So yeah, there's a lot of really good stuff out there. A lot of it's free too. So there's no right or wrong way to do it. As long as you're kind of like, periodically checking on yourself and seeing, am I meeting the time frames or am I not, and what the reason might be and how to adjust so that you can keep the flow going, right? So
Right.
cool.
Right. Um, so a little bit on the initial release of Void. I announced it on Twitter. A few friends of mine tweeted about it. So about, I would say, a dozen people bought the game, which tells you how easy it is to climb the sales chart on itch.io, because that alone got us to like number 6 or
Oh wow,
maybe 5 for the daily sales.
that's cool.
Um, uh, so it was a nice launch, and I wasn't really. So I'll go a bit into like what my goals were with Void. I wasn't expecting it to be a huge commercial success. I'll spoil that right now. Um, I wasn't intending to, shock the world or become the next indie darling video game, because that just isn't realistic,
Yeah,
and that wouldn't have happened in any scenario, because I I just did not cultivate the game in a way where that would have happened, right? Um, so overall, the launch was a success, and I felt happy with it. There's the trailer here. I Since the audio isn't showing, I'll just share it on Discord after the um, presentation.
oh yeah, for sure. Yep.
But uh, it's here in the presentation. So
Okay.
just pretend I showed it, and then we'll move on. Uh, oh dear, it's opening. Different tab. All right, there we go. Back to the presentation. What were my goals for Void? So I had a few primary goals. My biggest goal was to have a game that I had commercially released in some fashion that I could show to prospective employers and say, hey, I have started, developed, finished, and released a game commercially. And part of that, I wanted to make a trailer for the game because I hadn't made a trailer for any game. Well, I had, but I hadn't made a trailer for a solo project and gone through the necessary efforts from start to finish of crafting a trailer, editing, mixing, and then uploading it. So I wanted to do that just to have that experience. And I wanted to make a game that was generally good. Like, I wanted to make a game that I felt was a fun, positive experience for people who had played it. Um, and then some secondary goals. So Ian Schreiber pointed this out to me, that like many many festival of indie game expos have like an experimental games category or a student games category that I should submit to. And I thought, oh, great, I'll do that. And then another secondary goal was to release the game on Steam. So, with that in mind, where did Void succeed? So, I would say it's a great portfolio piece. I can show I I definitely accomplished that goal. It's a game I can show to prospective employers and say, I finished this and I released it and I did the things necessary in order for it to have a nice presentation and a nice cohesive store page, and it's out there and you can buy it. And then I made a trailer for the game, and again, it's more just I want to test that skill and prepare for more self-published games in the future, because having a trailer is probably one of the most important aspects of um, video game marketing. If people are going to look at one piece of media or one piece of information about your game, especially on a storefront like Steam, it's going to be the trailer. They're going to look at the trailer, um, and they're probably not going to watch the whole thing. They're probably going to watch maybe the first 10 seconds, if that. And then if they're interested, then they might buy it and they might not. If they're not interested, they're moving on.
Yeah, it's like they're gonna see the trailer on the worst connection on their phone for the first 10 seconds of it, all muted, right? So you really have to nail it.
Right.
Well, and that's something that I kind of want to piece over the top two main bullet points is that, like, why is it important to have this, if especially in your scenario where you're looking for employment at a game studio, and a lot of times if you're trying to apply for an application, they always want to know, have you released games? Sometimes they'll say, have you released a AAA title game, right? Some bigger studios, but they just want to know if you've been part of the pipeline process of not even just making the game, because they need to know that you understand the marketing process, because even if you decide that you don't want to sell the game for a monetary value, you still need to know and understand how to market your game for it to even get a chance to be played. And I think that's something that people don't always think about, because a lot of times, you're scanning through. I mean, think of yourself as a player. Like, you may play a bunch of free games, but you're still going to pick one that you find interesting, right? And even those still have a lot of really thoughtful ideas of how they gone in and thought about how to showcase the game online and get people to actually just literally just play it. So yeah, I mean, even if you just want to share it, like, and you want to get really good feedback, you're gonna have to know a little bit of marketing on how to get the game out there so people can play. Yeah. So yeah, good that you
Yes.
got that through for sure.
Yes. So that's why those goals are important. Wes pointed it out perfectly. Um, when you're looking to apply to studios, they aren't so interested in, like, do you know how to make games? They're more interested in, like, have you gone through the process of finishing a game? Have you released and know the process of releasing a game and all that goes into that? And yeah, those two first bullet points kind of cover that. Not all, there's more to marketing than just trailers and having a nice store page, but those are two very important elements to that. Um, uh, there's also like social media. There's also just having a general presence. There's the communication of mechanics and what makes your game novel as an experience. And there's a ton of different elements that aren't covered by just those two things alone. But having those two things shows that you have at least some inclination that they're important. And then moving on to the third point, it's gotten a pretty positive response. Currently, there are, I think, 4 or 5 reviews, and they're all 5 stars on itch. And the game isn't perfect. And that's a success because I spend a lot of time trying to make things perfect rather than make things work. And I feel like a lot of the time that I spend developing games isn't spent isn't spent making content that's going to be noticed or be like genuinely appreciated. It's mostly stuff that is like the tiniest detail, and like I just want to get it absolutely perfect. And letting go of that perfectionism and just finishing the game is a lesson that's very hard to learn, but I think is absolutely necessary if you want to finish and release quality games, right? Because the game that is perfect is not released. The game, like no game that has ever been released is perfect. And that's a lesson that you need to learn rather than just struggling to ever release anything.
Yeah, because there is something to be said. I mean, especially if you're working on games for yourself, you honestly can do it however you want. Like, and uh, I want to like really push that. If you want to make a game at your own time, that's perfectly fine. Like, if you again, like in your instance, you're doing this for a career choice. Some people might be doing it for a monetary choice, and there's a lot of different perspectives. So don't say like everything I'm saying here is perfect as well, but definitely like getting a chance to like what you're doing now, where you're able to create a trailer, which in and of itself has to have a good game in order to make a decent trailer, right? Those are things that are important just to be able to observe and see the entire
Cut out here.
process, right? So, yeah, so definitely. And what's great is that you're able to get really positive responses. Now, that's not everybody. And I guess the point I wanted to make there is that even if your game gets no sales and nobody looks at it, that's fine. You know what I mean? Because you went through the whole process. I know when I worked at Multivarious, I mean, we made so many different games starting up that just never saw the light of day. There was like, we were joking around a game back in the day that we called Call of Duty instead of Call of Duty. It's kind of like the one we always joke around about. But yeah, I mean, those games, like, I wouldn't say they necessarily failed. They were just at different parts of, the pipeline. And now we're working on games that are getting a little bit more exposure and getting us more experience, a lot more connections, and really a lot more information from everybody here and other different communities. And you get that through trying and experimenting and learning. There's a lot of folks that feel like I need to know everything. It's like, well, there's a lot that you can know, but there's no one that can tell you what the perfect recipe is, right? Because it really
Right.
depends on what you want to do with it, how you want to sell it, what you want to get out of it. And a lot of that's just, in some instance, just trial and error. I think my favorite saying has always been, "Don't try for success." Is not really about failure avoidance. It's about error recovery. I know that like Pixar used to talk about that when they were doing like looking at applications for their programs and their workforce, and they follow the same guidelines that NASA's been doing, which is you know how well do you do under failure? Do you just you know get to the point where you don't recover, right? Or do you try to find out a way to you know you know improve on it and do the next thing? Because you'd be surprised, you could probably never really fail a game, right? in terms of the process, as long as you keep trying again and learning from it and improving on it, right? So yeah, and I think that's what's great is that your last point. It's not perfect. Yeah, there's no real perfect game, right? There's no real perfect process. There's always a way to improve it, but you do have to release it at some point, whether it's finished or unfinished, and send it out to the world and get feedback just to kind of see what where it's at, right? So,
Right.
but cool.
Right. And it's not to say that the game isn't good. I think the game is good. It's just not like, you know, it has flaws, and I know that it has flaws, and I'm perfectly okay with that, right?
Yep.
Um, and releasing it in that state is more important and consumes less of my time and of my effort. Well, I shouldn't say that. Like it's good to spend time and effort on games, of course, but it's not wasting that potential where I can do it on something else that will be even better than this game, right?
Yeah, that's a good point too because it's thinking about okay, so once I get this game done, right? I've released it. It is what it is, and I send it out there. You can then restart the process, right? And now you have all this information that you've learned from your first attempt or your second attempt or third attempt that you can now apply to the new project that you're working on. And that's an invaluable process too, because you soon find like there might be, how muddy is the foundation, right? You can keep building. Like I always like the Monty Python scene where they're trying to talk about building a castle on the swamp, and they built it like 5 times over again. What if you're just like, well, we learn from it. Maybe we don't build on swamp. We build on solid ground. How much faster that process would be. So, yeah. So, I mean, I think that's really important is that just get it out there, right? Maybe just say, my goal is to build a game. In your instance, what, 2 months, right, Kent? It was
Yeah.
about a 2 months. That's great. That's amazing. If you can do that again, maybe now you do it 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, whatever. Or you do 2 months again, right? But just these quick processes are going to be able to get you to a point where you can learn from time to time again, things that really help. And maybe you build tools that are helpful or you find processes that help. So, yeah, definitely a really good thing to think about. So, sorry, I
Yeah.
keep commandeering, but go ahead to your next process.
So where did Void fail? So it took me way too long to finish. So it really took 2 months of work, as you said, but I spent a lot of time just putting it off and saying, like, okay, I'll do this later. I'll do this later. I'll do this later. Um, when if I had started working on the game once I had made it, I could have had it out maybe like a year ago, right? Uh, and so just another element on the process. You shouldn't be. I feel you should have some restraint in what you start, but if you have an idea and and what you're afraid of is really like, oh, I feel like it's going to take a lot of time and a lot of effort, it's probably not going to be as bad as you're building it up to be in your own head, right? I felt like a lot of the challenge of making Void and a lot of the reason why I struggled to get any of it done over the start of the quarantine was because I had like intimidated myself and said, oh my goodness, it's going to be so hard to like finish. And I had built up this like mental challenge of saying like, oh no, this is really hard. When in reality, if I had just done the thing, it really only took me 2 months of work. And another thing A flaw of Void is that the controls are a bit loose, specifically the jumping. I've gotten feedback on that, is that the jumping sometimes just doesn't feel good. It's very rare, and happens in specific levels where uh, the geometry just is not as tight as I could have made it, but it only happens every so often. So I didn't really bother fixing it because it would have just taken more time and more effort than it would have been worth to fix it. It's, again, going back to the game not being perfect. It's okay to have a flaw here and there. People are willing to forgive those flaws if the game itself has a solid foundation and they find it fun to begin with. And currently, I have not received or applied for any awards with Void because all of the ones I had wanted to apply for have been canceled. And that's because of COVID, and it's not really like anything I can control, but it didn't reach that one secondary goal that I had put up for it. And another point that isn't on this slide, the game has not released on Steam, but I do mention that later in this presentation.
Well, that's something that's important right now. Is I think that's the ability to apply for awards or publications or events. Is still very new. Like I know that PAX just got done with their big online event. I think it's done now if I remember seeing the tweets. But yeah, I mean, you could publish to that or look to, you know, uh, be an exhibitor there or go to a different competitions. But a lot of it's still hard to tell who has them and who doesn't because either these events are now, if they're in person, if they were in person, they're either canceled or online. And if they are online, do they even have the type of sources that require us to be able to apply for, or maybe it's a competition or maybe it's just an exhibition, and what does that mean and what does that mean for your game in terms of being needing to be prepared to showcase there. It's still very new, right? Because we moved from where everything's locked down to where everything is slowly opening back up again, but also evolving, and we don't know what that looks like yet, so it may actually be a little while before we know these things. So yeah, I mean it is what it is, and I think we're in a kind of a little bit of a limbo as we're starting to see what different events are doing. But yeah, definitely keep on the lookout. I mean, just as we start to find stuff with COG, we'll try to post things there too. Again, like I mentioned before, you can always use GDEX as a way to showcase your game off to a big online crowd. And based on the feedback on how things go, we'll look to see what this looks like next time we do this, right? So, yeah,
Right.
it's a good thing to think about. I mean, I think it's a temporary pause, right?
Right.
As we start to see, not even if it like this thing extends longer, but also like just getting feedback on what the first experience is. There's a lot of first experiences right now that's going on. So, yeah, but cool.
So what now? What are my plans, and what do we take away from this? Um, so I plan on adjusting the game a little bit more and then fixing a few of the issues, specifically like that jumping issue and a few other game feely things, and releasing it on Steam pretty much the same as it was for $1.29. And then I also plan on adding stuff like Steam achievements and all the other features that Steam has, and going through that process because, again, having that under my belt as far as like portfolio piece is really important. And then, yeah, that last point on the last slide is I definitely see it as a temporary pause. When expos and awards open back up, I definitely want to apply for student game and experimental categories, and see how it does. I don't expect to win everything that I apply for, but it would be nice to have a few runner up or even win a few awards. And that again would be nice to showcase in a portfolio. And then I just really want to continue to have people play the game and gather feedback on it and learn more about what did I do right, what did I do wrong, and how I can improve. So overall, wrapping this up into this lessons learned slide, because this is the last slide of the presentation. Wes, if you want to add anything to the what now here.
Yeah, no, I think it totally makes sense. And just kind of like, so we do these presentations, right? And you may be talking to yourself like, oh, maybe I don't have anything to present, but this is a good demonstration of you're kind of always in a process. I mean, you'll hit milestones and you kind of go through, but even Kent right here is looking to, what are the next steps, right? Like posting it on Steam and submitting to different shows, either as a student game or experimental, and that kind of just doesn't stop. So don't feel like you can't showcase something or have found experience that maybe you want to talk and reveal to other folks, whether it's COG or through a talk or just kind of giving your 2 cents about a topic, because you do learn a lot of stuff, right, in terms of this development process. So feel free to like keep that through your mind as you're kind of going through process. Like maybe my game isn't ready to show. Well, like Kent said, like there's no perfect game, so you might as well show it and see where you're at, right? So yeah, just kind of reiteration of what we've been talking about before, but it's good to see that you've got a couple of things that you want to do with this game that could even be done within the next couple of months. So
Right. Right. And then finally, some lessons learned. First point, just finish your game. Definitely a lot harder than it sounds. I struggle to follow this advice myself, but just make the thing, and it'll just know that it'll never be perfect. And the real kicker is like, if it's good, no one will know how perfect it was in your head. They'll just know that the game is good to them now, right? Because like they can't glean from your your inevitably flawed game that you had all these great and perfect ambitions for it, and it's just a good game. They just see a good game. And then second point, accountability partners. If it were not for Nick, this game wouldn't be done. Full stop. And if you can have an accountability partner while you're solo deving or working on a personal project, it's great if you can find them. They're invaluable to getting you motivated and getting you to finish projects, especially if it's kind of mutual. At least that's how we did it, was we mutually were holding each other accountable for our personal projects. And then the final point, which kind of ties into the first point, but putting off work costs a lot more than doing bad work. I reworked a few things in this game several times once I had started working, but the amount of time I wasted making those things does not even compare to the amount of time I spent just not doing anything to uh, and hesitating to even start making those things. Like there's a system in the game that it's a save system. So I save the game every time a level starts. And I was struggling to implement it without the game crashing. Um,
Yeah.
uh, and eventually, like, but eventually I had figured it out. But from the time that I started implementing the save system to the time that I finished it was a lot shorter from the time that I thought that the thought came to me like, oh, I want to implement a save system. I don't know if I can do this safely or not. Uh, I'll just do that later. And then I just didn't do it for a long period of time until I finally did it. And then when I did it, it didn't work at first because, of course, it didn't. And but the time it took me to fix that and get it working was a lot shorter than the time I spent just putting it off.
Yeah.
So,
I I think that's a good thing to point out is you kind of almost get in your head sometimes about how challenging a process might be or how long it's going to take, and you really won't know until you do it, or
right,
get your feet wet into it. Uh, so I think that's great, and I know that a lot of times, even myself. I mean, I there's a lot of different projects I want to do and work on as a personal thing, and I put it off because like a lot of different reasons, like maybe I'm too busy or I'm thinking about, okay, how do I even start that? What I would say is just say make a self goal. I've seen this done a couple of times where you just say, okay, I'm going to do this for 10 minutes, right? And if you then do it in 10 minutes and you're getting into the flow and groove, you just keep going, right? If you're like, I just don't know if I should do this, then just make a choice and decision like, okay, I'm going to take a break, either move on to something else or come back to it later and do another 10 minutes. But as long as you're doing 10 minutes like a day, for example, that's I think found to be really successful for a couple of folks that I've been reading up on that because I follow like the developer channels for the game dev networks and Reddit and whatnot, and just kind of poke around at different Facebook groups, and having a process like that kind of helps. Where it's just even if it's a little bit, it's better to have it more often than to just do like, okay, this month I worked on it once for like 8 hours, right? That might be overwhelming because the next time you think about working on it, you're like, oh man, I'm going to do another 8 hour session or I'm going to stay up till 3, which I don't know, maybe you get into it and you're like, that's great, but maybe you're like on a day where you just don't feel like staying up that late doing it, right? Then you kind of hold this false sense of urgency that if I need to get this done, it's going to have to be done this way. But you don't have to, right? And there's a little bit of that self discipline, right? I think that's something that I could see being reverberated throughout this entire session is like just having a discipline where you tell yourself that not only should you try to kind of have this pattern of short spurts that you kind of do that are achievable goals that kind of help push the project along, but they're also there in achievable goals and ways that makes it easy to do in some instance. I wouldn't say always easy, right? That save state that you're talking about, Kent, is a big obstacle that I think you had to kind of overcome. Um, and just as well, like you were saying, accountable partners was a great way to really showcase that, and kind of get some feedback, like if maybe your process is working, right? And I would say as well with accountable partners, it's really good to have folks that you can kind of lean on that can kind of hold you accountable or you can hold them accountable in a productive way. And if you think that maybe it's not working out, you can tell them like, hey, I think this isn't going the way I want to. You have every right to say like, well, maybe we can try different parting ways, right? And find someone that else that does work. Like I think people feel bad about telling folks that hey, it's not working out or whatever, but it's fine. I mean, you gotta be able to work in a flow that works well, and there's some folks that work better than others. And I've seen a lot of that in even some of the game jams we've been doing over the years, where someone like feels bad that they're not part of a team that they really feel strongly about, and it's to the sense to where they feel like, oh, maybe I can't contribute the way I want to, or don't feel like, this way or that. And that's okay. Like, maybe you can find a different route that works for you, right? So,
Hmm.
yeah, these are really good points. Let me see if I can look in the comment section, but feel free to chime in, Kent.
Right.
Uh,
Well, that is all I had, and that is
okay,
the end of the presentation.
cool.
Um, Thank you all for joining me here. This was much longer than I thought it was going to take,
Well, we
but
went through a lot of like design processes and workflows. I thought was really kind of neat. Do you
mhm.
mind if I speak to some of these chats?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
So, towards the end, we were starting to ask questions, but I know that George was saying, he's actually got a good point. He likes the idea of, no one knows how perfect it was in your head, right? The game that you're talking about. Yeah. So a lot of times, you've got this thing in your head and you want to put it out there, but no one knows what that is. So you got to do your best to kind of showcase that. And it's never going to turn out exactly the way you thought, but there are probably sparks and instances of it throughout. Um, yeah.
Let
So
me
like,
start sharing my screen here.
yeah, yep. Oh, let me see. Boop. Did you want me to share your screen or?
No, no,
Okay.
I'm just canceling my screen
Cool.
now so that I can look at the chat without that
Yep.
hall of mirrors
There you
effect.
go. Yeah, that's what Discord
Oh
does.
dear, my computer really does not want me to stop sharing my screen.
No, it's all good. Yep. So that was George's conversation. Sebastian was talking about, does perfectionism ever get stuck in analysis paralysis? Right. I've heard that before. So what are some things that help you get out of it? So that's a good question for you, Kent.
Yes.
If your perfectionism gets you into analysis paralysis, does it get you stuck, and how do you get out of it? I guess that's a good question.
So yeah, I definitely relate to that. My perfectionism does get me stuck in that analysis paralysis, uh, and things that really help me get out of it. Oh boy, so it's hard. It's hard to get out of analysis paralysis once you're in it. But some things that really help me is talking about it with someone else, like just saying like, "Hey, I have this thing that I want to do," and just getting their opinion or take on it, getting some external input, um, and typically when people, even if you like even if what they say you don't agree with, at least you have like some sort of external input to say like, oh, I'm no longer thinking about like the problem in my own head. I'm now thinking about it in context with this opinion. And once you have that opinion and you say I agree or disagree with it, you can do some sort of action based off of that. Once you like say for instance you're implementing some sort of like character controller and you don't know whether you should add like a full jump or let the player do like short hops, and like how do you handle that, what's the sort of window you want, um something like that. I would bring that in front of another person, ask them how they feel about it. If I agree with their take, then I'm like, okay, so I agree with this and I can do this and I don't need to think about it that much beyond it. Once I get it implemented, I'll get some more feedback, but now I know what to do. I have an actionable thing I can do. If I don't agree with their opinion, I need to figure out why I agree with their particular opinion or implementation. Once I find the reason, I typically know, like, okay, so now I know how I want to do it because these are the reasons why I disagree with this opinion about this thing I'm making. Um, So I know, like, here's some things that I value as a game designer that this opinion is rubbing up against. And here's how I can implement a feature in a way that aligns with those values that I have as a game designer, and allows you to just block out a lot of the analysis paralysis. So I think getting other people involved really helps. And I think another another method I've found is, like, if you think of an idea, like if you think of like multiple ways to do something, and you just pick one, uh, if you don't like it, that means that that idea wasn't the one that you want to do anyway, and you should just pick one of the other ones. And then once you eventually settle, like, oh, I like this way better, just because it's easier to implement, or it's more aligned with like the coding standards I have, or whatever reason you have for liking it. It's just you like it, so you're gonna do it. And I feel like placing that value judgment onto those different things really gets you into a place where you can like actionably do something out of analysis paralysis.
Yeah,
Um,
I think like definitely kind of setting goals. I know that Caleb was saying is it really helps to try to think through, what you want to do and to define in writing what specific things you want to do. So like having those goals where they're written down, or like what you did, Kent, which was have like a periodical meeting on Discord. Those are things that are going to help to track where you're going, and then you can like say, okay, like because perfectionism is like kind of going above and beyond, uh, you know, to make things exactly how you want it in your head, right? But if you make up these, I wouldn't say make up, but you think about and create these goals specifically for what you think is reasonable, and then you get to a point where you say, oh, I'd like to do more, then maybe you're creeping on to the fact of like you're trying to add something that will require a resource that maybe you didn't intend to have, right? Because you say you want to do this in 6 months, or you want to do this in 2 months, and you know that you have this amount of time. It's fine to say like, okay, this is what it is now, and we'll get back to that, right? uh, but for now we just need to get to a point where we can move on to the next phase of this project. And I think that's where, for me anyways, like a great way is to like write down what you want to do, and then as soon as you're done with that, keep pushing forward, right? Because you'll
right,
still get a lot done. In some instances, they say, like, as an artist, you paint with the biggest brush first, right? You wash the entire canvas, you paint what you need to, but then you start to shape, the figures on the canvas, whether it's a person or a background. You don't start with the smallest brush, right? You don't do the little details because that'll go forever. And then you'll never be able to see exactly what you get till way down into the point where you may not have enough time to really change what you were working on. So yeah, definitely setting goals is a great way to do that and compare where they're at, and then just being okay, even though it feels wrong or cringy or whatever, to take what's not finished and move on, right? So um, I went ahead and also posted your game from Itch.io, so people can play it. But are there other things that people can take away from this that you may want to showcase towards the end? I don't know if there's a lot of questions other than that. Smiling Cat did say that one of the big, as one of the Factorio devs said on their blog, he who does nothing breaks nothing, right? So if you don't create something, you're not gonna have anything to break, right? So that's actually a really good point too. But yeah, I think outside of that, people seem to like this pretty well. Is there anything else that you want to talk to people before we sign off for this event today, or anything else you want to
uh,
share?
I I guess I guess my overarching point would be like game development is a struggle. and it's never going to be easy to do. It's never easy for me to just like sit at my computer and make a video game, right? Um, and I think coming to terms with that and finding ways to say like, how do I make it easier on myself are really helpful. And really, the process of making Void was not just the process of, you know, making a game start to finish. It was the process of finding out how can I make game development easier for myself so that I don't feel absolutely crushed every time I try and do something. And that I think is a much more important takeaway than anything relating to like the design of the game itself, right? And so again, the big takeaway is the process of making games is hard. How do we make it easier? And I feel like the accountability partner, the working on games, accepting they're not perfect, and being okay with that are definitely some of the more important lessons that I learned from this project than anything relating to like game design, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and especially because as you start to go into it, you might be overwhelmed um, with the whole process. But just know, like, there's a lot of people out there that are interested and willing to help and maybe be a part of the process with you. And even if you're doing it by yourself, there's a lot of people that can help walk you through that process. That's what we try to do, either through COGG or if working with like different Ohio groups like Cincinnati or Cleveland. There's tons of really great people because they've been all through it, right? It's kind of a neat, kind of niche, small yet large community that is of the game developer community. And a lot of them have been there, right? And you may be interested in starting or you're in the middle of the process and you feel overwhelmed. Well, just know that a lot of people are too, right? And uh, I just want to thank you today, Kent, for stepping out there and showing a little bit of your glimpse of what your process is with Void, and just kind of like good practices to keep in mind because there might be some things that people find valuable in that. So
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah,
Well,
I was glad to do it, and I thank you for having me.
yeah,
Always, I'm always more than willing to come by a coffee if I can. So it was nice to get the opportunity to come back to this community for a bit.
sweet. Well, thanks for stopping by. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna stop the stream, um, and I'm just gonna do a quick showcase of our next event. So our next event is coming up for Prototype and Play. That's going to be October 16th. Again, that's the third Friday, not the second Friday. That's going to be right in our Discord. And I just posted that in the chat channel just now. So if you want to be a presenter for that, let us know. It's a great way to showcase your game. And it's a great way to kind of just get to talk to people and get feedback. And maybe you just want to test other cool games that are being in development. So that's our next event coming up. Please do check out that. And then what we're going to do is go ahead and jump into our Discord and we'll go through, let's see, in our public community channel, we'll be in the voice channel. That's what I want. The general channel right here. So if you're in Discord, it's this channel right here. And if you want to jump in there right now, we'll be hanging out for a couple of minutes to a couple of hours and just until people want to hang out. We'll be here till 4. And then afterwards, I'm going back into the GDEX Game Jam and we'll be talking to some of the folks there. So if you want to join us, check out gdex.com and you'll find the link to all the registration and all the Discord information too. You can also message us at info@thecog.com. You can message us in this chat channel and we're happy to give you any resources you need. But a lot of full stuff today, even though we're all online, a lot of really cool stuff. And if nothing else, thanks, Kent, for coming out. Thanks for everybody stopping by, and we'll catch you guys at the next event. So, if nothing
All
else, you
right.
guys have a great weekend. Thanks, everybody.
See you.